This is part 2 of Open Academia, a philosophy of open practice, and this part focuses on the practice aspects. Openness is being suggested here as a generic theoretical principle which is vital to authentic scholarship and the symbiotic cycle or interactive cycle between society and academia. From a practical point of view, to put this philosophy into practice, we need to maximize distribution of scholarly knowledge and scholarly information, and yet this contrasts with normative practice, which by and large is around minimizing sharing and only letting knowledge out through very specific pathways, subscription, commercial journals, for example, and only letting out teaching knowledge via paid student enrollment knowledge. So this is a relatively minimal model of academic scholarship in terms of facilitating the functions of society. In principle, open academia then is quite simple. It's really just about maximizing sharing, but in practice it's actually a complicated and surprisingly involved activity, mainly because being open and undertaking open academic acts goes somewhat against the currently ingrained norm, although we seem to be on an evolutionary path towards greater openness. Now, in my experience of trying to be an open academic, and with varying degrees of success, there seem to be 5 key areas where decisions need to be made on a regular basis around the extent to which one is going to try and be open with one's scholarship. And these 5 things are open access, meaning the materials are available to the public, whether they be research, teaching or service related materials. Open licensing of those materials, meaning that people are allowed to reuse that information with as few restrictions as reasonably possible. Open formats means distributing digital files in containers that can be accessed using free software, rather than having to rely on commercial software to read the data and information. Use of and encouragement of the use of free software means that we have a truly free educational platform, and we're not building the need to use commercial and unnecessarily expensive software for education and research. And finally, open governance is the idea that as much as possible the decision making and the strategy of the academic institution at macro and micro levels is transparent to students, staff and the community. Pretty much at every point in an academic's role, then there is a key decision between whether to stick with the normative, relatively closed practices, or to turn right and undertake the open agenda and ambition. And this can manifest in things, in questions like who can access the learning content, who can reuse it, the file formats, what type of software is required, and how is a unit of study governed. And these are the 5 alternatives that I've been suggesting. This can be applied to courseware, textbooks, articles, theses, conferences, data, and any other output of academia, including, well, as mentioned, textbooks are a key example that we could look more closely at. So the ideals of openness contrast with closed normative practice, but the suggestions here are in line with steps being taken towards openness, and academia should really be championing open